apparently our neighborhood is having a fit about this whole recycling thing with the Southern Block disposal. So they've seen one of the trucks come through and pick up the recycling and dump it in the garbage. And then the recycling comes, drives through and doesn't pick anything up. So like, why are they dumping the recycling into the garbage truck as well as the garbage? Why aren't they recycling? And the response we got was that somebody in the neighborhood, in a kid nice lake, was putting,
Contaminated.
yeah,
And if they're not, because they have cameras, and they can see as soon as they lift it up if there's something in it, but it's not supposed to be, they can't put it in the recycle.
yeah. So, but anyway, the people in our neighborhood have been spent mainly the retired people. So it's like, okay.
Got John's email.
Oh, you just got it?
I just checked my email.
Your email is slower than Mike Baker's email.
No, it's me not checking it.
Oh. Well, as I said, I haven't even been on Facebook. I was driving all day.
Mark's pretty good.
I didn't have a chance to.
The one I had, it almost was like an angel food cake.
Mine tastes bad. I think it's
That
angel food
John's
cake,
phone?
but it's bad. Yep.
The chocolates are good.
I like that.
To make it into a sandwich?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Hey. Right.
Well, you don't look so happy.
This fashion, I guess.
He's been working from home too much. He's getting too used to not having to leave his house.
Oh, is that right?
Gotta go somewhere, what the heck?
I get to go on a field trip on Wednesday.
I do?
Frank and I are going down to Ashland,
We do down there?
just checking out the painting project,
Uh,
because he needs to get out of the office too. He's going crazy.
You gonna check out the monstrosity of the visitor centers you come in?
Pretty good, yeah.
Pretty nice visitor center.
Oh, man.
Nice of you to join us finally, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
We,
My wife came home, surprised me, so I didn't know she was coming today. A little quick laundry and dishes and that. I feel like, and it looked like I was totally
so we're gonna try to do the picture thing next month
Well, I was just trying to figure out.
because
Oh, okay.
Jennifer had
Dental.
medical stuff and Kat asked to
Postpone it, please.
postpone as well. Who
What
called?
wrong with
Somebody
it?
hacking my phone?
I printed it out, I yelled at you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's allergies. I can't hear anything down the hall.
I could have hollered for you, but I figured they'd call you back.
It's John's birthday.
Happy birthday, John. How old are you?
50.
Policy.
Are you 50? How old are you?
41.
Same age as mine.
I was rounding.
Well, you didn't look like 50, but pretty good.
Thank you, Cheryl, for the cupcakes.
Yes,
I'm sharing them if you wanted one.
after. Otherwise, I might end up with, frosting trails across my face or something.
That's why I have a beard, so I can save them for later.
There you go.
Well, that coloring would also give you,
Yeah.
seeing as you did have some blonde in there.
Yes, blonde. Platinum.
Okay, so it's 5:30. Let's go ahead and start the meeting, and let's start with roll call.
Jennifer Bragg.
Sarah Thompson.
Lonnie Rainville.
John Parker.
So,
Mike Baker, and it looks like we're currently missing Mark Hendershot. So it seems to be in a little bit. Did we hear anything from Mark?
We did not hear anything from her.
And secondly, do we have anybody on Zoom? Are we set up on the camera?
We are set up. The camera
Camera's there,
actually
okay.
has a wide view of the whole room.
Okay.
But not a good enough resolution to be able to read our name tag.
oh,
We checked it out. Yeah.
And do we have anybody calling in? Is
Jennifer?
Jennifer
Jennifer was
Bragg.
gonna call, and then how about Sean? Is he He's gonna be on the phone?
He should be.
Okay.
Do we have folks on the phone already?
I'm sure she meant Jennifer.
JD and JD.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I work.
Did I say brag or?
No, Cheryl
She,
did.
she
Oh, oh.
had more. I work with the James guys also. so-
But it doesn't seem like they're on the phone yet.
Okay. Lonnie, can you, do some pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In terms of, public involvement, I just want to make sure that, if somebody has something, they'll comment into Christine and she'll pass that on to us. Is that how we're doing that? Okay. All right, let's go on to the consent agenda for the May 11th, 2020 minutes and the May financial report.
I like the minutes.
I'll move to approve
I'll second.
consent agenda.
Moved by John, seconded by Kat. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Under old business. Old business, board vacancy applications. Let's see, I'm looking at the minutes, sorry. Like what? Who did that last one? Okay, back on to, we are in old business though. Budget update, Cheryl.
Okay, so based on the timeline available to us with the requirements for the public notice for the committee meetings and the budget hearing, we have scheduled the budget committee meeting for next Monday here. And then the budget hearing is for the following Monday here. We were planning to do them both on the same day, but the budget hearing has to be posted 30 days. And then the budget committee, it was less. So it just didn't quite work out. So, but we do have a budget to review at the meeting, so I'm excited about that.
A little more complicated this time.
It's a lot more complicated, but I believe it's going to be fairly accurate. The spreadsheet that we were using, we were able to take the proposed positions, things that might come into existence, say 6 months from now, and determine what the rate of pay and the benefits and retirement, all of those things would be for 6 months instead of just for an entire year. So
Just a procedure, so to speak, is the budget committee separate from the board, or is the board also part of the budget committee?
the board is also part of the budget committee.
Okay, so we're supposed to be here next week, because I'm asking someone to be out of town on Monday, so.
So I believe that you can participate by phone or as long as we have a quorum, we're still good.
Okay.
What we're supposed to do is have the 7 directors and then 7 members of the community as well. And if that doesn't end up being that, it says it's okay.
Yeah, nobody almost, it's hard to fill vacancies in budget committees.
Yeah, so I read pretty in depth to make sure that I wasn't setting this up for failure on this, because it's my first time actually completing the process. of it.
Yeah, I had to work with Lance Colley and Ron Harker to, last
Yeah.
time, just to make sure that we were
So what time is the
compliant.
meeting next Monday?
5:30, we figured if we stuck with the regular meeting day and time, that it was probably gonna be the easiest
Yeah.
to remember and for everyone to attend.
Okay, any other questions on that?
And then the next meeting is the 22nd.
Yes, Monday, 3 Mondays in a row, sorry, guys.
Jeez.
So I more than likely won't, well, I won't be at the next week, I can make all the rest of them, but I won't be available next week.
Same. Is that here?
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Right, next item, 5.2, unpaid leave discussion. And there's a resolution in your packet.
Yes, so we had some discussion regarding the unpaid leave for the U-Trans employees that might choose to become district employees. So based on the discussion and direction from our last meeting, we put together the resolution that's here in front of you. And then based on Lonnie's
We're
suggestion
halfway through.
for the
Keep
leave
on after this one. Keep going.
05, right?
Yes.
20-5, okay.
20-6.
I thought it was 20 dash. Oh, it is 5. Oh, sorry.
It should be right under the last.
Yeah.
Right under the financial.
Sorry, I'm copying Mike.
Oh, there it is. It is actually there.
All right, so the second page is the leave vesting schedule that would show, it shows 3 examples of if an employee had, for example, this many hours coming over from UCAN, how long it would be before they were vested to cash out on them if they were to leave the district's employee.
But they can begin using them right away if they were
Yes.
using them as
Mhm.
PTO.
Yeah, it would be very fun to come over starting July 1st and you're planning vacation in
Yep.
August
Right.
1st. So I'm thinking all you had was maybe 8 hours. Is there a maximum bank that they can accrue?
Yes, it is 240 hours of PTO,
Uh-huh.
which the PTO is used for sick,
Vacation, sick.
vacation, everything. And then after the 240, it would roll over into an extended illness bank that can only be accessed for either bereavement leave or if they were ill and
Long-term
Yeah.
kind of illness.
and that's all defined in our policies as well.
Any discussion?
I just, forgive me for not understanding the leave thing, because I haven't been somebody who's worked vacation very much. The 240 hours accrued, is that representing one full day of vacation or one work day, an 8-hour period of vacation? So it really, instead of being 10 days of vacation, they have 30 days of vacation.
So different people will accrue at different rates
I'm
based on
Just
seniority.
for a flat out deal to blanket cover. everything.
240 divided by 8 is how
So
many
it's
days
30
they
days.
have available. Yeah.
Okay.
So that basically covers 10 or 11 holidays, depending on, where the holidays fall. Sometimes 4th of July, people will get 2 days for the holiday.
Oh, PTO is used for holidays too?
Yep, it covers holidays, sick time, and vacation time. So in essence, they get about 2 weeks each. 2 weeks vacation time, 2 weeks sick time. No, 80, yeah, no. 4. If you can take it, it's a good thing.
They let you off.
Yeah,
So you accrue 240 hours in a year, and that is your maximum accrual as well.
that's your max, yes.
And then
And there's no.
then you'll lose it
So it's
if
a
you
use
go
or
over
lose
240.
program.
So if you have 240, yeah, I think the 240 continues to roll forward into the years if you have it, but you can't get more than that. So even though you may continue to earn at 12 hours, you're losing 12 hours if you're not reducing your
Right, use
PTO
or
number.
lose.
It's rolling into that extent.
So once it rolls into that
Oh, that's,
extended bank, and then somebody takes 2 weeks off, now they're under their 240, that still stays in their illness bank,
It stays stuck in the illness bank
Okay.
until, yeah.
Until they use it.
so there's no like flexing in and out of it if you don't.
It'd be a
Okay, well, that would be a nightmare, yeah. exactly. Making sure.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 20-5.
I'll second it.
okay, moved by Lonnie, seconded by Sarah. Any other discussion? Those in favor of support resolution number 20-5, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And I just included the employment termination policy along with that, because they kind of go hand in hand with the vesting schedule.
All right, the next item is item number 5.3, COVID-19 policy.
Okay, so I actually worked with RBTD with Julie Brown to put together the COVID-19 policy, and it is one of those living, breathing documents. It is supposed to be reviewed every 14 days. When I initially started working on it, I was trying to just do district for these premises here and the very few employees that I had. And then I realized, it's just a minute and we'll have all of the employees and have to cover all of the various different areas. So this includes UTrans, so it'll be in place when UTrans comes over. So it also includes a cash handling policy for the fare box revenue and cleaning for the buses. I have been having an ongoing discussion with the current supervisor over at UTrans regarding the requirements of the phase 1, phase 2, and the Oregon Health Authority, everything that is transit specific. And we have been looking at the possibility of hiring somebody as a district employee now to start doing that cleaning of the buses that is on a more regular basis, like as they come into the transfer point downtown. So that person would be responsible for cleaning the touch point in the shelter, the seat throughout the day. And then as each bus comes in, well, the bus is taking care of whatever business they need to do, whether that's loading, unloading a mobility device or other passengers. This person would be able to just walk through and clean all of the commonly touched surfaces. So have it come to a complete agreement, but it looks like we'll be able to start somebody doing that so that they're in full compliance prior to the time that we bring the operations over.
Do we have N95 respirators now?
We do indeed. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I can send some home with you or back with you for your service as well.
That would be awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Is there a requirement that if they are quarantined or anything at home, that they have to have a doctor's
Doctor's
note
note.
or something to return to work?
Yes. So one of the reasons that I worked so closely with Julie on this is because she had been working to help develop the guidelines for transit. So as a member of the Oregon Transit Association Board of Directors, had the opportunity to provide feedback regarding the implementation for transit. And, just kind of jot out the challenges that brings to rural transit. Because the guidelines, the way that they're set right now, they limit our dial-a-ride providers to 1 or 2 people per vehicle. They limit the buses, instead of 23 passengers, they can only have 10. And in the larger buses, instead of 36 passengers, they can only have 15. So big difference. And so it's gonna, kind of change the way we look at how services provided if these guidelines are required to stay in place.
And then, so in between, the physical distance between passengers is only 3 feet, as long as there's 6 feet between passenger and driver.
That is the requirement from the transit guidelines from the Oregon Health Authority, yes.
And then, so talking about like if a passenger will not wear the mask, because I know that John had talked about this last time, about the possibility of a lawsuit.
So,
'Cause there's a lawsuit pending in, is it Salem, against their public transportation. Someone filed because they wouldn't let them on with the mask.
without a mask. So the guidance is that we are supposed to enforce. But if you go to the frequently asked questions on the ODOT website for public transit, it does state that if somebody states that they have any kind of a condition, it doesn't have to be a disability, but any kind of a condition that would prevent them from having to wear a mask, then we can give them a reasonable accommodation. We actually have a driver that is requiring reasonable accommodation. They can't wear it while driving. They can't wear the mask, period.
Right.
It's like the protest. There's a minimum amount of people that can be in one area at once unless they're protesting, and then they don't have to follow the guidelines.
Right.
We'll use that on the bus, saying that
I'm under
we're here to protest on the
Yeah.
bus.
I want to know who are the social distancing officers? Do we have our own police force?
So most of them say to be decided because right now this only applies to this building.
Okay.
And so there's 4 of us here, so Christine and I, we're gonna be the enforcers.
There's 4 people.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of fun teasing about that, so.
Did we get plexiglass?
We have not.
Still so hard to find someone.
That's what that picture was.
Well, so the picture that has the barrier, I left that picture in there. That's, that one is actually a bus in RBTD. Because it does state if there is a barrier, and we do plan to get the barriers. But right now, everybody is backward, and the minimum you could get one would be middle of July. So we're just kind of trying to see what's working best.
And then
We
we
have
made
problems
screens
with
to
the
protect the
buses.
vertical.
Pardon?
We have problems finding, what's the last time fit your bus?
Yes,
Good luck in finding one that would.
yes.
Okay.
So there are a couple of bus manufacturers, the Shepke up in Portland and also Creative Bus. They are manufacturing the plexi that will fit the type of buses that we have. So, yeah, but they've got a 6-week lead time as well.
Every transit agency wants them.
Yeah.
It might be something to keep up all year long, I mean, just as a permanent staple in the buses from now on.
Absolutely. We're looking at moving forward as we order buses, just order it built in from the gate. And that's a safety measure for the driver as well, if we get one that's well enough made.
It doesn't say that there's an action item on here, but do you need us to approve the policy? I know there's a signature page for you at the end.
Sure, that would be a
So
good
I just have a
idea.
question really quick on the eye protection. Is that a requirement also? So since we don't have the plexiglass up, if you don't wear glasses, you need the goggles on?
Well, it's not a requirement, but it's an option that we want to provide to anyone that feels that it's necessary.
Okay.
What we're really going for here is to make sure that anyone that feels that they need some kind of protection, that they have it available to them. And then that we're also following the guidelines.
Do we have that available?
Guidelines?
No.
Oh, eye
All of the
protection?
protective equipment necessary.
Yes, we don't actually have the eye protection here at our office, but we do have some down at Utrams if if somebody were to want it here.
And you say this is a living document, so we're not actually approving anything except a living document, not word for word.
Right.
Well, we're approving this as a policy. I think what she means is a living document is it can be amended in the future as needed if something arises that we didn't
Yeah,
think
so we
of.
don't have to examine every word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if you go home and find that I have, left a page out or,
right.
Yeah, we
I got
can
that.
definitely amend it.
Is there a motion to approve the COVID-19 policy?
Why don't we just take time to look for those missing pages before we adopt it? I mean, it's not something.
Hello, everybody.
I have this minute, and it does exist.
It is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so, it wasn't.
No, we made it because we have to have it, but
Okay.
we're gonna change it if we need to, as time goes by.
And
That's what I
this
was
is one
saying.
that RDTD used too, right? So
It
they kind
is.
of came up with OTA and
Yes.
ODOT and stuff, so I
Yeah.
think it's been
Yes.
worked through.
Well, and what we did is remove, we don't do our own on-site maintenance, so we removed all references to a maintenance department. And we changed all the references to the various different buildings to match our buildings as opposed to Jackson County. Jackson County Health Department, Douglas County Health Authority, or Health Network, I believe it is. Yeah. So, it went through and just made sure that every reference was appropriately changed and that the hyperlinks in the electronic version of this actually go to the pages that it says that it's supposed to. Yeah.
That's
One
good,
thing.
that's a good thing.
Yeah. So
Hello, excuse me, this is Matt.
Vote on it.
I would
Brochure?
say it's a good idea. It is always a good idea to have a policy that's approved by the board. So yes,
Sarah wants to make that
Was it-
motion,
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve COVID-19.
and I'll second it.
Moved by Sarah, seconded by Kat. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, transition FAQ.
alrighty. So one of the things that we had talked about at our last meeting was the frequently asked questions for the folks that are again coming over from Ukraine. So I had a discussion with Cindy, who she has contact with everybody all day long as they come through, starting or ending their shifts down there. And I also had a conversation with Shelley regarding the things that she was hearing most often as well. And this was the list that we came up with. Most of them I could answer. Number one, though, will my unpaid PTO transfer to the district? Didn't have an answer to that until we passed that this evening. The EIB payout, that is a question for UCAN, and I will follow up with them and have that answered probably tomorrow. And what that is at the end of every fiscal year, the EIB bank that UCAN has, so they've got 240, so we mirrored that with the 240 of PTO. They also have 480 of extended illness bank, and anything that accrues over and above that on the last paycheck of the fiscal year, UCAN pays that out to them at a quarter of their wage. And so they're leaving as of June 30th. So that's the question, am I going to get that? And it really only affects 3 of them. Most people don't accrue that kind of paid time off. But so I'll get that answer from them. There was one other. Will the PTO accrual rates start at the same rate that they're leaving with UCAN? So if somebody's been on board for 5 years and accrues slightly higher than somebody who's in that 1 to 4 year range.
Mhm.
And so we actually addressed that in our policy. I was looking that up today. So as long as we agree that that's something that we can basically bridge that, it just, all it affects is their rate of accrual.
Are you going to expand on some of these responses?
I could do
So will my unpaid PTO transfer to the district? So just to be, of course, there's no answer to that, and you said you hadn't because we haven't discussed that there, but it, may include things that this is this is a one-time, this is an unpaid PTO from somebody coming from, first student, in 2 months from now. That's gonna start with the district. These are only current UCAN employees as of June 30th that are coming over July 1st.
Right. and
So just to make sure things are clear and not,
So we addressed that in the 20-5.
I'm just saying for the frequently asked questions stuff.
Oh, yeah, this is only for the UCAN employees.
Yeah, I'm just
Throwing
saying
that out.
I'm just saying to,
Okay.
So that they
They know.
Oh,
clarify.
they're-
If they
Okay,
don't come over
so they
now,
don't
when
hand
they
it
come
to
over
their
later,
friend
it's
that, and, okay.
No,
gotcha.
number 7, it says, so this is another example, will I have to take a fit for duty physical in order to be hired? And this says, yes, it is, but I guess I might expand upon that is that the responsibility of the district to pay for that, or is that the responsibility of the driver to pay for that?
So typically that would fall in, okay.
I'm just saying,
I'll spell that
explain
out.
it.
Yeah, explain.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't care what the answer is, so as,
It's just,
Making sure everybody else knows.
yeah, so just providing more, even will I still earn PTO? Yes, but it'll be earned at the same rate that you were doing that up until your anniversary, just explain things that they go in more detail.
I can do that.
If
We
this
have
is a
people on
one-time
Zoom that are
offer.
trying to speak that keep getting shut off. We have people on Zoom that are trying to bring in comments that are being shut down. I keep getting texts.
Christine, do we have anybody trying to comment?
No, let's wait until public comment for that section.
Well, they should be
Well-
able
Are
to
there-
just type in their stuff.
Are
There
there
are common
comments,
questions as they come in. They
Yeah.
still pop up.
are there
Yeah.
comments that
Public comment.
pertain
It's
to
just-
the current
They just keep everyone on
conversation?
mute.
No, okay.
Alright, cool.
But is everybody in a waiting room or,
So are they thinking that they're speaking or are they commenting? If you're listening on Zoom, if you can comment, you can type in a comment. And then we'll see that and be able to respond to that.
I'm on the phone, not Zoom. Is what they
oh,
said.
they called in?
Oh,
Trying to,
well, that would still be connected to the.
It's still,
computer.
yeah, it's still Zoom.
Yeah, there's just no video. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just mute the conversation.
it
They-
mutes people from
So they can't
talking,
comment.
commenting in when we're in the middle of a meeting.
Which is,
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now? Hello?
I think they're trying to talk.
Can you hear me now? This is Matt Droscher.
Okay.
Do you want me to get my Bluetooth speaker to bring it into the boardroom?
when we get to public comment, we could do that.
So may I mute him again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So does that cover frequently asked questions? Okay.
Is there, I just want to go back to the Zoom thing for a second. I just want to make sure that if they have comments on what we're talking about, that they have, before we make a motion, that's, they have the ability to provide comment on that item, agenda item.
Are we making a motion on something?
No, not right now, we aren't, but we're talking
I
about
don't
the
know.
frequently asked questions.
Just the mouth.
If they have comments on the frequently asked
But I'm
questions.
all for, when it's something to say that's relevant, that we allow them to speak.
Mhm.
Are they gonna stay with the 11 questions, or are they gonna interject 20 more new?
But we don't know
We don't know
until
that
they
until we
speak.
hear it,
We're
yeah.
not mind readers, John. I wish
Yeah.
I knew that though.
But I don't know if they're trying to type it better or they're just trying to, I thought you could comment still. I thought
It's
there was a-
muted, you
there's a-
can't comment during mute.
You can
There's
type it
a
in.
chat feature to be able to, I did that.
Even on the phone? Well, generally when you call in, you're still connected on the computer too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Watching the video.
he's just not watching the video, I think with it, it's just.
All I
it's
do is-
here on the phone.
So do we have anything more to add to that, Christine?
Regarding?
Are there any more comments that have been typed in?
Nope.
Okay.
He wouldn't be able to type the comment in.
Yeah, if he's calling on the phone.
I don't know what his question
Is
is.
this an action item? though?
He said that he has a funding opportunity and a question regarding COVID-19 policy. Just pass through.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to go,
Can we come back to it?
come back to the
after
Put it on
COVID-19,
the
or do we want to come back to that a little bit, in a little bit?
Do we want to do it on the not on agenda?
Either for the funding, we probably should have took the comment for the COVID-19 policy.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready for the funding part.
Yeah.
That's a separate
Yeah.
issue, separate item. Hey, Christine, can you pop them on for the COVID-19 only? Put them
I
on,
can try,
on
I hope
speaker.
you can hear 'em. Go ahead, Matt.
Hello, this is Matt Droscher.
I can barely hear them. You have your Bluetooth?
Yeah. You want it?
She's going to get a Bluetooth.
So Matt, what we were looking for was your comment on the, oh, I think that's where the speaker is.
For us, it is.
Yes. So we were looking for your comment on the COVID-19 policy that you had wanted to provide.
Yes.
But we're getting a Bluetooth speaker so we can hear.
So we're getting you hooked up to a Bluetooth speaker.
I don't know if I can or not.
Is there only one person at a time able to call into this phone?
Three.
So with Jennifer, Matt, and other provider managers, could they just call in on that and we can unmute them when necessary and they don't have to be in the public portion of it?
I think that's okay for them to be in the public portion of it. Because anybody can comment.
Right, I was just, for something like this, and
He meant instead of Zoom, right? Is that what you
instead
meant?
of Zoom, have
Yeah.
the managers have
That might be
access
on
to the table. Then we don't have this again in the future.
Who is on the Zoom?
Yeah. Oh, on Zoom? That's
Yeah.
Matt Droscher.
I mean, if there's other people, sorry. I mean, I could have him on my cell phone in 2 seconds if that's,
Yeah.
should we just do that?
Or we could have him call the phone here.
If we knew the number.
We do. It is 671-7507.
7507.
Am I not doing this part then?
No, you have to still
Are
do
you
that part in
connected?
case we have late arrivers.
That's very true.
Matt?
No?
This
There
is,
you go. All right. So you had a comment, Matt, on the COVID-19 policy.
Hold on a second. Let me reduce this down here. Yes, I had a comment regarding the COVID-19 policy. One of the things that probably needs to get added in is that with ACL providing funding through the CARES Act, and they're going to have other releases as COVID-19 will definitely come back in the fall. And it could be a repeater in the future. So this might be a policy that we'll need to have on a little bit more permanent basis. But they are looking to have regular funding, and we should have a funding piece and how to implement that piece when it comes time to being under a COVID policy. So currently, what I've been trying to discuss with a few people in that room is the fact that we have some CARES funding here at UBDN. And from that CARES funding, there's already been discussion at the ODOT level, and it's already been okayed at the state level. But also there's ongoing discussion with the Transit Authority and ACL and a number of other partners up at the federal level. So the basic gist is when people are too scared to ride the bus or ride the buses can be utilized, and the funding for those can be utilized on a 50-50% match to go and reach out to people and provide food and possibly even medications. There hasn't been a confirmation on the medications that I'm aware of, but food has already been approved on the state level. And one of the things that we have is we have some funding that could go towards that 50% match. So we currently have about 105,000 available for the next 16 months. And we've already kind of spoken for 20,000 of that. But the rest could be utilized for assisting getting food out to people who are isolated. And ACL is wanting to focus on people with disabilities, which matches up pretty nicely with people that are funded for transportation services through STF. So it could be a simple matter of identifying those people that STF funding is being utilized for medical appointments, or they're isolated and they have additional resource needs, and we can get some stuff out to them. That also provides an extra set of eyes on people that are out there, and additional outreach to other resources. So that's what I was trying to say. And then, excuse me, and my question was more in regards to kind of the nuts and bolts functioning. We still have not seen our quarterly reimbursement, and I've been asking about the status update, and I have yet to hear one. So I didn't see anything on the agenda regarding that or addressing that. So wanted to bring that up.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
You bet.
I don't know if we can mute or not. So, Matt, one thing before we mute you on the funding.
Could be on that.
We're just looking for a proposal. Anybody can you have the ACL funding available to you. You have the 5310 funding available to you. It's a 50-50% match rate, and you can use that any way that you see fit. That's really not a district decision.
He's done.
Okay. All right.
Hello.
Hello again. So it sounded like I needed to provide a response. Now, the whole point of the ACL funding is to form up and develop partnerships. So that could also be some great groundbreaking possibilities with other aspects like APD, the local AAA, and other resources with funding that they're trying to provide. I understand that we have a driver's seat as far as what we can do with those COVID-19 funds. What we're wanting to do and what we've been indicating and communicating is that this funding, we'd like to partner up with Umpqua Public Transit and see about developing a partnership so that with this funding and pass-through dollars, that for at least part of this emergent situation, we've got the ability to utilize some of the underutilized vehicles to get food out to people that otherwise don't have those options because possibly their ride is no longer available. So we would provide that backup support.
Right, so it sounds like there may be some other opportunities. I think this is getting a little outside of the COVID-19 policy in terms of what FTA requires. But Cheryl, maybe you and Matt could talk later and stuff about these opportunities and see what kind of partnerships we could develop.
Yeah, my understanding is it's already been discussed at PTAC and has already been discussed. So Jennifer Boardman has already spread this information and it has come down from high levels. I actually gave the email thread to Cheryl, so she's very well aware of where the thinking has been. And I think it would be smart for the board to get that information. And I think as a collective body, maybe make some decisions on how involved does the transit board and the transit system want to get involved during the crisis mode.
Right. Okay. All right. Hey, thanks, Matt. Some good ideas there. Next item on the is the retirement, number 5.5.
So we had previously discussed that the district being a government entity was not eligible for a 401k. We did have a meeting with Edward Jones. Actually, it was with Sandy from Edward Jones. And she provided some information regarding what's called a SEP, or a Simplified Employee Pension Plan, and a simple IRA. And those are really the only two that would be cost effective for us at this time. There is another plan, but there are considerable administration charges, and it's recommended for companies that have at least 100 employees or more. So the basic difference between these two plans, the Simplified Employee Pension Plan, the SEP, is 100% employer paid, and the employee has the option of directing their contribution to they meet with the person and direct their own contribution. It's not something that they're told this is how you can invest it. They have that option of investing it with the person that is the plan administrator. The simple IRA it functions a little more like a 401k in that the company would contribute 3% and the employee would have the option of contributing as well. So there is a page here that has the simple versus the SEP. And basically what it comes down to is the SEP is definitely the most employee friendly, and the simple IRA is much more company friendly. And once you make a choice, you're kind of held to that choice for 2 years.
So which one of these plans resembles what we currently have? Or do they not really have?
Right now, they have a 401k.
Okay.
So there's an employer match, and they have the option of being able to contribute.
So they're more in line with the simple IRA right now.
Sort of, kind of, yes.
just out of curiosity, is a 403B, not, I believe it's a 403B plan.
I think that has to be a nonprofit.
Yeah. Wait,
This is government, currently treated as governmental, is that
I
correct?
think it's separate.
there was one other, but again, it had, the costs associated with administrating the plan. You have to hire an administrator, and then there were fees associated with continuing the plan that put about $10,000 per year in addition to what the contribution from the company would be. So just for an example, when we put into the calculator for employee benefits, we used the STEP version and we used a 10% contribution, and that was based on RVTD does a 14% contribution, and the water district over here does a 12%. So we put 10% in just because it was easy numbers to figure it out. And it would actually be with all of the 27 anticipated employees by the end of the fiscal year, about $98,000 total that would be diverted to the plan. So, and this is not a decision that has to be made tonight. It can be made after we go through the budget committee meeting and see the different scenarios for what that would look like.
So this is, the effective date of July 1
Is the date that the plan would start. Currently, we don't have a plan.
So could we approve half of this resolution and come back to the percentage portion after that?
We could talk about what those are, but what we actually need to know what those are before we have to pass a resolution.
And isn't that more of the budget committee work?
Well, so the math is in the budget that'll be presented in the budget.
It's really a board decision in terms of what that percentage is, not the budget committee. But the budget committee, I think, is just where she's saying that we'll learn more about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see the ramifications more on each one, I think is what you're saying, is what I heard. Is that what we want to do, is really kind of defer this one to the special meeting in June?
That's how I feel.
When you look at the greater majority of the employees at the rate of pay that they are currently being paid, if they're diverting anything for their retirement, it is about $1,000 a year, which we all know is not really something that's going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that loyalty, employee loyalty.
Mhm.
She says the employees that have a SEP plan, they don't leave. They stay employed from the gate, you know?
What are the possibilities that we might hire somebody under the age of 21?
Well, the only place somebody under the age of 21 could work would be in an office.
So do you see the office hiring anytime in the next 2 years?
So there is one dispatch position still open that we'll be hiring for.
What I'm getting at is
Somebody could
the
quit.
SCP discriminates against people under 21 and the simple does not.
Gotcha.
So I would like to make sure that the conversation at our next meeting has some focus on that topic. Because, I mean, if potentially we're gonna hire somebody,
Hold that thought, because that is employer set. An employer can elect to exclude employees using those requirements. They're not required to reset the age on that. The employer can require the employee to attain age 21. That's just an eligibility requirement we set as the employer. On the front of this page.
Which one are you on?
On the, that,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
this-
set by employer.
There's two sides to this coin. Obviously, we want to try and have a benefit package that is going to be a positive thing for our employees. We want to make it as rich as possible. However, we also need to be cognizant of what is our funding and our financial position going to be, not just today, but what's going to be long
that's
term.
wages.
Wages,
That
now,
increases.
so, obviously, you're going to carry a much heavier burden with a set than you are with the simple IRA. And I guess my question would be is, for the long term, is it sustainable to offer this rich of a benefit? I mean, do we know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Right.
So, I would stand on both sides of the fence on this, and so. From experience, I know that we need to look at both sides of that.
Judge scheduled a hearing.
Table to the first.
Okay, so we'll hear some more. It sounds like the consensus of the board is to hear more information during the budget meetings and to make that decision that week after when we come back to the board. Okay, so we'll postpone action on resolution 20-6 and move on to item 5.6, adjacent property update.
That's what I.
Okay, so I have been working with IE Engineering, and it looks like there is, it's more than feasible to be able to engineer this property next door. The plan that they had presented to me had 28 employee parking spaces, a preventative maintenance shop with 2 pull-through bays, so that you don't have to back in and out. That preventive maintenance shop also had office space for the operations team, so for the transit supervisor, any assistants that they might have, the maintenance manager, a break room that is just specific for drivers and maintenance people. And it also includes a pad to be able to do the washing of the vehicles. And then the spaces for the bus parking were 28 spaces that they had drawn in that were like basically double spaces. So they were 80 feet long, and our longest bus is 36 feet. And it gives that pull-through space as well. So currently there, when we take over the whole thing as of July 1st, we'll have 20 vehicles in total.
And then we're gonna add some buses too.
And so that gives space to be able to increase by over 30 vehicles and still be okay. So John has some continuation on that. We did get a title report on the property, and John has been in contact with the person that owns the property. So do you want to take it from there?
I am removing myself from the meeting as a member of the board as I declare a real conflict of interest. So for the record, John Parker, real estate broker of record for the board. Property we're talking about is this one right outside here for the, have you been briefed on this yet? Okay. So for you, it's right on the other side of the fence and there's that parking lot. Talking with Cheryl, and with the current owners of the property, when we first started the conversation back in, I want to say it was September of last year, we started talking about it and moved into a real discussion in December.
Yeah.
They were hoping to not have a lengthy, drawn out process of doing it. This time, I think it's been pretty lengthy and drawn out with nothing more than a letter of intent. They have, because of their mentioning not wanting it to be a long drawn out process, I went ahead and spoke with with Cheryl about the idea of making an offer on the property. Cheryl indicated that there is, that we do have the money in the budget just to procure that property. So the loan that we'd be looking at for finishing off the building and then the building of the structure she just spoke about, we'll be paying less interest over time on that because it would be a smaller loan if we just bought that over there. So what I wanted to propose to you guys is for you to discuss the potential of submitting an offer to them. I don't believe they're on Zoom right now. I didn't see their names. I had no idea I was going to talk about it anyways. And a meeting that we had in December, you guys did give us the permission to work on finding the feasibility of the property, which I believe Cheryl just mentioned that the feasibility is there. So it's up to you guys, board members, to come up with a number. I recommended around.
Can I pause you? Can I
Yes.
pause you right there and just stop you from saying any more specifics and detail in the open session? And then,
Yeah, then we'll have executives.
we can, this is probably better discussed in a executive session, which we don't have advertised, so just put in our next meeting in a couple weeks.
Is it,
I'm not on the board right now. You do what you want.
So is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
will it draw out the process any longer, John,
Yes.
to make you nervous?
So the concern here is, with the title report, we find that there are a number of years of back taxes. And so there is a need to move soon before there is a,
Delinquency,
yeah,
complete.
a lien.
Yes, so
I
we,
think if we can talk about this in June 22nd meeting.
Right, I think that's where we want to talk more detail about all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and just kind of keep that out of open session.
It's only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rejoin you at the table.
Sorry to stop you there, but yeah.
I was in realtor mode. I was.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on the adjacent property? Item 5.7, U-Trans transfer agreement.
Before we start, is our lawyer not coming to the meeting tonight?
No. So the UPenn transfer agreement, there were a couple of concerns that were voiced. One of which was the in number 9, the date of May 1st, oh, this is the old one that I have. May 1st, 2013. Which I had realized that was my date of employment. Is yours?
No, mine says May 1st, 2013 as well.
2013.
Okay, so
There's a new one.
there is a new.
What's the other ratio?
I believe they changed it to, changed the date
But you told me it was July 1st, 2020.
only on the environmental indemnification. July 1st, 2020.
Oh, yeah, that's changed on this one. The only one. Page 8. 9.4, it's right under the.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they
it
changed
says-
it on the one, but I think that the,
Or 9.3.
yes,
Oh, it's changed again.
on 9.4, but on 9.2 and 9.3, it is not. So,
And it should be July 2020.
July 1st, 2020. Mhm.
so it's just
On
some
2
kind
and
of
3.
typo?
3 and 4.
It's
Oh,
not a
2, 3, and
typo.
4.
On 4, it is July 2020.
On 4, it is the environmental one.
2, 3, yeah, sorry, I meant 2 and
Okay.
3. Those haven't changed yet.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So, in attempting to figure out what the significance of that date was, I realized that is the date that I was promoted from the supervisor to the manager of the U-Trans program. May 1st, 2013 is my transfer of position date. So
Did you question them on that? Or have you had a conversation about that date?
I I did, but only in an email. I haven't,
Yeah, because the district didn't even exist until September of 2018.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to identify
Wait,
the
so-
district back to 2013.
Are we not supposed to change the date, or would you change the date?
I would, well,
Change the
it's,
date.
I think the reason why they're doing that is because 9.2 and 9.3 are tied. One's indemnifying, one's us. And they want to basically indemnify the entire length of period that.
that I've been
that you-
managing.
Exactly, so that Cheryl can't say, this happened in 2014, so I'm going after you. They're saying, nope, once this happens, Cheryl can't come after us for anything that we did. I think that's why I put that date in there that far back. That's my guess.
I would assume so, yeah.
The other date for that one the other way, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you're just trying to keep them consistent.
Yeah, because usually you would be indemnified by that, whoever your insurance coverage is.
So there was another item, which was the transfer of the domain for the internet 5.2.
5.2?
5.2,
Page 5.
And so they did change that language to transferring ownership instead of allowing use of the U-Trans name and the, yeah. Is there one other?
What about the Boeing?
Yeah, the money that's owed.
So Mike and Sean had a conversation, and it turns out that that is funding that you can, their project, the Lifeline project that goes to the outlying areas, that funding is funding that was tied to making the connection to Lane County going to Cottage Grove northbound and to Josephine County going southbound. And seeing as that connection was never completed, that funding is not available to them. And so we were discussing they thought that it was going to happen, and we could go into why that didn't happen. But the bottom line is there was a service that was in process that they continued because they thought they were going to be able to access the funding. And then all of the steps did not happen to ensure that that funding was accessible. So that's why they're asking for that money.
But it's services that they did provide.
Mhm.
They did
They did
provide,
provide the services, the funding never came through to them. Is that correct?
correct.
And I understand why it's in the contract.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Was it our fault?
So in the interest
really.
of not disparaging anyone,
Oh.
I'm just gonna say, all the way around, it could have been done differently. I had a part in it, and I would think that it's in the best interest to go ahead and pay it.
I think it's the cleanest, I think is
Mhm.
really what it sounded like, way to go. It was something that they might have cut, but, we had this stiff project in there to do it and wanted to keep it going so that they could add this other bus, and it never happened.
Is that the same for the fiscal year 20 money that we'll know at the end of our cycle too?
No, this is
The
separate.
fiscal year 20 stuff, so we saw some of that before, I think before you were on the board, Sarah. And so they had their first couple quarters, the first 3 quarters
Oh, the deficit.
exceeded, right,
Okay.
exceeded some of that. And so, really with the COVID-19 stuff and CARES Act and all of that, with their employees, the expenses have dropped. And really, what we were thinking that we would go into our reserve to pay that and make them whole. Even though we're not necessarily required to, I think it's the right thing to do because it was stuff that, we had the new services they provided. We don't even have to go into the reserve anymore to do that.
Right.
So we will a little bit for this stuff from before, but way less than what we thought we were even gonna do just for this part. So, yeah.
All right.
And wasn't there something, the language on insurance was the other, did that get? They wanted to be on the insurance title for 2 additional years, which I would understand that our insurance company would say no.
Typically, there's no running up.
I don't think that would be,
I think
they
that's
don't have a
what I
vested
did.
interest.
There's what's called tail coverage. If something happens today that would give rise to a claim, some policies would say it happened during their term of insurance, so it's covered. Others would, and the claim gets made after the transfer. Others would say trades made after the transfer, tough luck.
So you're saying something like, today they made a decision not to fix something because we're transferring it, but because of that decision that they made, and then we took it over, now something happens with it.
Well,
That was really a cause from.
it could be
before.
something simple, like
Somebody fell down
somebody
the
gets
steps.
hurt, a fender bender.
Yeah,
Some policies would say if it happened during the policy period, it's covered till the policy ends.
Mhm.
But some other policies, and I think you can negotiate this. I'm not an insurance guy, but some other policies have what's sometimes called tail coverage. Once the policy ends, if the incident happened during the policy period, you have coverage. So we might not have settled that issue. Because it's conceivable that something's out there.
For 2 years, because you can sue for up to 2 years after
Well,
the
you sue for
event
personal
takes
injury
place.
for
Yeah.
2 years, you sue for 6 for property damage.
so there are incidents where people have misstepped and slid down the stairs, hit their tailbone on the way out of the bus.
I think personal injury is probably the major category that you'd want to look at that issue about.
Yeah.
Just in case somebody gets hurt and doesn't make a claim for a while. You want to make sure that coverage is there. And if I was representing somebody that got hurt on a bus today, I'd sue UCAN too. So they have a very valid concern about it.
Mhm.
They're the operator, they get sued. The district actually probably wouldn't because we don't run it. Or at least they wouldn't have a claim that would hold on, they would sue anyway. But one of the benefits of your insurance is that they pay the defense costs.
So it's appropriate to leave that in.
At least for certain types, I think personal injury type claims is the major category.
Yeah.
Because something could be lurking out there that we may not know about for a few months.
This is why I love having a lawyer on the board.
It's gonna benefit, if I'm reading this right, it's gonna benefit us
And
Yeah.
and them. I mean, so I see the benefit of having that in there.
so I would still like to have the input of our lawyer as well.
They haven't looked at this yet.
It's been submitted to him, but he has not had the opportunity to respond to it.
When was it submitted, do you know?
So I believe I got this last Friday, so it was Friday or Monday.
If possible, I'd like to try and get something, maybe we make an action item for the 22nd
For the
meeting.
22nd as well.
We definitely have to have it approved.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing anything until we find an attorney.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yes. All right, so for the 22nd. Was there anything else that anybody is concerned with that needs to be addressed in this?
No, but maybe, at the next meeting, the June 22nd meeting, maybe the lawyer can be present for questions. He was present tonight, like, I think we could get this through, I'm just not comfortable with him not having eyes on it.
Well, I think we also want to talk to UCAN just about those 9.2 and 3 years under those dates, to confirm what those are, what their thoughts were there.
Because there's an email out there already.
Yes.
Do we need to make it July 1st or is it?
Okay.
Okay, next item is number 6, general manager report, Cheryl.
Okay, so the statement of work for our transit master plan is, the statement is complete. The contractor or consultant procurement process is almost complete, and I have a meeting scheduled for the 24th, June 24th, to talk with an ODOT representative regarding choosing the consultant. And there are two meetings, June 24th, and the second one, I believe, is July 2nd. The loan application, again, we're just wanting to get the information on the property next door so that we know what we want to add in as the second phase for the loan application. I completed the grant application that was in support of the collaboration of North Douglas Betterment and South Lane Wheels. Initially, we had thought that that was a letter of support that was needed, but it was actually a grant application through ODOT. So we did that, and the letter of support will need to come from our staff committee if the grant is awarded. But it sounds like they have a pretty good chance of that happening. So Cascade Electric and Quality Fence are now actually coordinating the final phase. It seems like it's been on the agenda forever, but we should have a gate by the time that we meet next month.
I looked when I drove in today because I thought it might be there.
Yeah, we're getting closer. It seems like everything takes like 3 steps longer than one would anticipate.
Welcome to the world of public contracting.
Yes. So we did get a printer delivered, installed, and networked, so we can all print. Hence, you have board packets that we didn't have to go somewhere else to print tonight. So that is actually very exciting for us. And the quarterly report process was delayed due to the COVID 5311 documentation changes. So there's a new form that tracks for UCAN, for UTrans, for the 5311 funding. The January timeframe falls under the regular 5311 at the 43% match rate. The February and March falls under 5311 CARES, and it is a 0% match rate. But there are 3 or 4 versions of that CARES funding, so we have to kind of allocate it out on a worksheet that then ODOT is actually going to go in kind of backwards, rework it in the system to be able to give that 0% match rate for those for February and March. So there's been some additional challenges once again on that reporting process, but that will be complete this week. And I did work on that COVID policy, and you've seen the results of that. I have had an ongoing, continuing conversation with the current transportation supervisor over at UTrans, just to try to look at what's going to make the smoothest transition. And it's going to be a little more challenging than we initially anticipated, simply because of the COVID situation, because there are like 8 drivers that went off work that are not back to work yet. And the reduced routes are still in place because they don't have drivers to start increasing that capacity. So, just doing a lot of legwork on that. We did meet with Sandy from Edward Jones regarding the retirement plans. Met with the property manager, Deanna Clayton, and James Mast, the property owner for the 610 Southeast Rose space. And they are interested in reworking that space, putting up walls and giving us a smaller space for less rent, so that we still have a place for the downtown office to be able to service clients and drivers as they come in on lunch breaks, those kinds of things.
Well, that's amazing, because that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I was surprised. So the plan is to continue to rent the entire space for the month of July to ensure that we're not trying to onboard 20 new employees at the same time that we're trying to complete that entire move. It just gives us some breathing room there. And it also allows us to separate out there are things that go to UCAN, rightfully records and things of that nature. Some of those records, we have to have copies of everything associated with the buses, the purchases of the buses, those kinds of things. But they also have to have copies of that. So we're getting that sorted through a lot of boxes down there. So we just want to make sure that that everything goes to the right place, you know.
Can we scan that kind of stuff rather than have to store all the boxes?
So the stuff that's getting stored is going to go to UCAN. The only things that we have to have the physical files for are associated with the ownership of the vehicles and the preventive maintenance stuff is already scanned. So yes, we can get an electronic
Look at
copy.
the amount of paper we have stacked up in the back room.
Oh, yes. So we'll start creating our own, but everything that is stored, it should be district, not UCAN. So we'll store district stuff and start creating that right now. So I also met with the representative from Sunrise to get a quote for cleaning services here. And they're actually very reasonable. And so they can change up whatever we want them to do. So they can come in once a week and do the vacuuming, the cleaning of surfaces, cleaning bathrooms and the lunchroom, all of that kind of stuff. They can come in and do an annual carpet cleaning for us, all kinds of things. So so because they come in at an amount that is lower than what's required for an RFP, and they meet part of our requirement for disadvantaged business enterprise, we don't have to do an RFP. So
It's a great way to help meet your DVE goals as an agency.
yes, yes. So it looks like we should be able to get a contract signed and get them set up starting next week. I've been working with Andrea at UCAN to find the optimal way to utilize the funding sources that we have to be able to let go of that relationship, not owing them, but us not being in the hole either. And the whole COVID-19 thing, in ways it has been our greatest blessing to be able to provide additional funding that covers their operations and administration of ViewTrans that does not have match associated with it. It frees up the other half of the 5311 that would be applied to Q3 and Q4. And they will be able to invoice their Q1 expenses based on the 43% match rate. But because their Q3 and Q4 do not have a match associated with it, they'll also have the match available to pay that as well. So they had originally requested that we pay $162,000, $99,000 for Q1 and $62,000 for Q2 to make them whole. This whole situation is going to do that. It's going to provide the funding to do that. So I'm pretty excited about that. There were a number of purchases for the call center that we had really put off making because we didn't want to go over that eighth of the grant while UCAN was holding the bag on that. Really, we didn't want to overtax them. So that is the one grant that we found out is not transferable to the district. And so Andrea has been gracious enough to place the order for us so that we can complete the furniture for the dispatch area. and get the rest of the desks, the sit-stand desks, just everything. So we're working on that. They're also going to do the same thing and place an office supply order to stock us up as well, so that the rest of that funding won't go unused. And the paratransit that we had been using, again, an eighth of that, so it came out to about $13,000 per quarter. And because we won't be able to transfer that, what they're doing is for third quarter, the full amount of paratransit is going to be applied to the 5310, which then in turn reduces the amount charged to the 5311, which in turn increases the amount that we'll have available for operations moving forward. So they've been really good to work with us to figure out what the best way is to be able to utilize it as much as the funding as we possibly
Flex
can.
them as much as you can.
Yep, for the intended purposes. And then when we find out in July, basically, when it's all said and done, what's left over out of those two portions, then you'll have to make a recommendation to the staff committee and reallocate what's left of that 5310. So that'll be bonus for the other providers that are possibly needing more funding going forward as well. So we did receive quarterly reports from all of the providers, and those payments are in process. I did hear Matt say that he didn't know when those payments would be paid, but they have been submitted to Neimer Davidson, and we'll have checks this week to be able to send out to all of the providers, except for UCAN, because we are still nailing down the details of their report to figure out exactly what comes out of which funding source. But theirs will very quickly follow. We should be able to pay them next week.
And I assume we're working with ODOT to cancel contracts and to redo the police contracts.
Yes.
That timeline that we had way back when with Jennifer on everything, are we on track with that?
Actually, we are. The timeline really was 30 days was just not doable. So the delay to June 30th, it makes everything in alignment. We did a letter to ODOT, as did UCAN, that we stated that we were planning to do this as of June 30th. So even though there are a number of things like the vehicle titles that won't be complete at ODOT on the 30th, they are taking those letters and applying them. And so they see it as we will be the owner operators of those vehicles come July 1.
So the problem with the DMV?
So what we're going to do is we're registering the vehicles that
Just give them a call.
Yeah, we're just re-registering the vehicles, and then we would have had to do the title thing separately anyway, so it's not a difference in the amount of money that will be going out the door. So Coos County Transit, they are still working on their transit master plan, and got to give some information in a meeting about they're doing due diligence to see whether or not trips from Coos Bay to Roseburg would be feasible. And we posted a survey online for them. We requested that title report for the property next door and received that.
I wanted to know if that survey is still active. I found it, but I don't want to share it
Oh,
because I don't know. It seemed rather old. So I just want to know if it's active because nobody goes to that website.
so I can check.
Okay.
I can
Yeah,
check and
would you?
see. What I did is I personally posted it on the Green Neighborhood Watch, and I believe
Inform me.
Douglas County. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So some
Okay,
places
I don't
that-
go there very much. Thank you for being brave.
Yeah, I did it for places that are not typically, people that use transit or dial ride, that other people out in the community would be able to have some input on it. So,
But I would like to know if it's still active.
I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Let's see, there was also some free wheelchair securement training that was offered by Q Strength, so I was able to provide that out during the COVID shutdown for providers to be able to log in and take that training and get a certification. We finally got Christine's Optus Access complete, so she is now able to do the data entry for the quarterly reports, which will be most helpful. And we did hire a second dispatcher for Dial Right, and her name is Cheryl. So we can add a little more confusion into the mix there. And I did have determined for U-Trans and for the providers that ask for assistance what the maximum number of passengers per vehicle would be. And we just have had a lot of conversations and research regarding the phase 1 implementation, mask requirements. What do we do if somebody refuses, all those kinds of things. We just have done a lot of research on that kind of stuff this month. So that is that. Oh,
Lots of stuff going on. Anything else on the
Company
manager
credit
report?
not on the general manager report. This was just something to add on, not on.
Not on
the
the agenda, that's what we're on next. So
Yeah.
Cheryl, why don't you kick that off?
So when we had, when the board had offered me the position of manager, there was some discussion about a credit card and having a policy for that, all that good stuff. What we found is the district is too new to get a credit card. Even though they have money in the bank, we cannot get a credit card yet. But they did provide a debit card. So the debit card can, just like anybody's personal debit card, it works like a credit card. I am the name on that card. I am the holder of the PIN. And so it's not like I can hand that card to anybody else to go and use.
Right.
A credit card I could hand to a supervisor and say, oh, go buy that, whatever it is that you need, not so with the debit card. So just know that I will be a good, what is the word? Steward of that card, and I will protect it at all costs. One of the things that was in that order with U-Trans that Andrea put through for me is a safe. So,
I'd say that's a good place to keep it, isn't
yeah.
it?
So when we have the safe, that will be the spot for it to go. Yes. So this is just a policy that can go into our policy manual. And it's just very basic.
So why don't we add that to the June 22nd agenda as well,
Okay.
and we can just approve that later.
All right.
Okay, anybody else have anything in a way?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Sorry, just a second. Are we gonna get any cards or pamphlets made yet for the Dial-A-Ride pamphlets to hand out?
So, the file that they used to print those, it was on the computer that got wiped, that was Dennis's. He didn't have the opportunity to save that, no fault of his own. So what we have to do is really develop another one. From what I'm understanding is that the information on it was not entirely accurate. And so that's something that we want to do moving forward. We have not started that project yet.
All right, just like a lot of our riders are, emotionally, mentally, or physically disabled. And so usually we hand them like pamphlets, but I don't have any left to hand out. And usually it's not actually for our riders, but when we're in town and someone says, oh, my grandma needs a ride somewhere. And then I'm gonna go back to something that we talked about, I think, last meeting, which was the driver's line. I did give, Sharon had my cell phone number. I tried calling in. It was not an easy task. I would still like to recommend a driver's line that's just for drivers. And how would she know that a driver's calling in if we're calling in on cells and all of that? So it was just really difficult for me to get through again all month. So I would call Sharon's personal phone and she would answer, which was a lifesaver. So I kind of went around that.
So what we found with the phone system, all of the phones are like the one that you see here. And there is not a feature available to be able to put a separate phone number that will ring to multiple phones. So the way that the phone system is set up does not accommodate that. What does happen though is the 888 number for dial-a-ride, if you dial that, it goes directly to dispatch to the next available.
Yeah, no, I get that. We talked about that last time. What I'm saying is we need a number we call in, and no
Need a
matter who's
dedicated
on the
line.
phone, they say hold, they put whoever's on the phone on hold, take the driver's call. It's a safety issue. There's a lot.
The
with
bat
that.
phone, you need the bat phone.
I thought they were going to radios or something.
Right, so we did get
But we
the,
don't have that in place right now.
not yet, no. But it will be in place sooner than later, really, because the grant will be executed July 1, and we'll be able to do the RFQ and get those in place fairly quickly. The phone system does not accommodate what you're asking for. I understand the desire for that. When we have the radio system, it will give that instant access. But the tablets do have that instant access.
Yeah, our tablets are horrible and they barely work.
Does this have a single line coming in? Just one phone number, one main phone number coming in?
It does. So there's the main line that gives the phone tree that you can go to. You could transfer directly to U-Trans if you wanted to. You could go to dispatch or you could dial anybody's.
The only alternative to that would be you could have a second line brought into the building.
Yeah.
With it.
So their dial-a-ride specific 888 number, that does go directly to dispatch.
No, this is only for the
challenge-
drivers. It wouldn't be the 88 number that we would call. It would be a different number.
So the challenge that we're running into is that phone rings, that 3 different lines can ring in there. It's a training issue to get them to actually put the phone or the call that they're on hold and answer the second call.
Well,
And we're working on it.
Can you see who's on the other line?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
a driver or if it's only a,
Sometimes you can. It depends on.
so
what
in the
phone
past,
they're
how it
playing.
worked is there would be riders calling in and you would answer, they would be on the phone, but the driver's line would ring and automatic, you gotta go on hold.
Yes.
Like I get, you're talking on the phone with, the elderly and it can take a little bit. I understand. Sometimes it's not even a training issue. You just can't cut them off, But with that driver's line, it's, I'm not cutting you off for another rider. This is an emergency situation. Every time a driver calls, we take the number. You use the word desire, but I don't think it's a desire for us. It's a need.
the
really.
safety feature.
Well, it's safety, yeah, and it's a,
So how hard
It's a
is it to
need.
get us a dedicated line?
So it's not the dedicated line that said this phone this particular number, any one of your phones that are in this building, if you disconnect this phone and take it to any other station, any other building and plug it into a data line, I could take it home if I had a data line, plug it in, and somebody could dial that number and I can answer it just like if I were sitting here in the office. It is the type of phone system that does not allow, and we researched it, We went to One Talk, we went to Verizon, we asked them a lot of detailed questions about it. The phone system does not allow for what you are specifically asking for. So what we need to do is train to how do we make what we have work until such time as we have.
So I think
the
you
radios
can contact the
itself.
phone carrier and say, look, we need to have a second number brought in, and they can port a number.
I could put a second a second phone on their desk.
I think that's kind of the idea.
I mean, if that's.
If
what
that
it's
phone
for,
rings, if that red phone lights up, you have to answer.
I think as a temporary measure.
Yeah.
Until you have a radio system in there, I think that would be
I
something.
mean, if the system will allow for a second number to come on this phone, then maybe a second phone is what's required.
Maybe a cell phone.
And I think that this was a big concern when we were transitioning, that's why we asked on the dial right side, like, please allow us to be in the phone-free system when you guys are doing the system, bringing it over from dial right to here so that we
I
can
think
avoid
your
this.
concern is the dispatchers need to recognize, oh, a driver's
Yes.
calling in, they need priority.
Yeah,
Uh-huh,
And so that needs to
exactly.
be, whereas if it comes on this phone, you're not gonna know if it's a,
Nope.
who's gonna be.
Get red handsets.
Yeah.
Well, the providers or drivers that are programmed, their number is programmed in, it does pop up. Who's calling in? So,
But I like the idea of just a second phone for a little while to.
Maybe
until we
just
get
get
the
a
radios
cell
in there.
phone
Or even
for
a
a little
cell
while.
phone.
A cell
That- I was
phone
gonna
is just
suggest that
You can
before
get a
the cell
burner
phone.
phone with a dedicated 100
Yeah.
hours, and that's all you're really gonna need. You need those cheap.
Yeah, a couple
yeah,
cell
well,
phones
and
easy.
right now Sharon has given out her personal phone number.
yeah, it's been a lifesaver. She was great about it.
Go to Walmart, get a burger.
Yeah.
Something cheap.
You got a debit card.
And then another part was when, because I've been like dispatching, and so my phone number's on the answer machine, which is fine. Well, which is great, actually. But I've been getting a lot of calls for medical pickups from like passengers not being able to find rides. And the one in particular, I was actually over on Douglas Cares. Their equipment ended up lasting like 3 hours. So the receptionist at a medical facility called me and said, you guys forgot this person and no one's answering the phones and we don't know what to do with them and we can't leave. And so I left that building to go over and pick someone else up. And I also tried calling in several times with no answer to anything. I think it's important, even though maybe just a few places are up and running, that if there's a van out running, for the most part, there was always a dispatcher here available for that connection. I ended up getting almost there and then got the phone call that they, another dial-a-ride provider stepped in and filled that, whatever happened there. So, but I've gotten a couple of phone calls that ended up getting worked out and I didn't really have to intervene too much other than just giving phone numbers and that kind of thing out.
That's the medical transport. Bay
It's
City.
dial-a-ride.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I had people
So,
get stuck after
yeah,
hours
yeah. So
and they're calling me.
I know that Sharon is, I think, like what, 10 to 2, but we don't run 10 to 2. We run,
Right, and that's why I hired another dispatcher who is, and actually Sharon's been coming in at 8. And so we've had coverage from 8 to 4 for over about a week and a half now.
But if you have people that have
News to
appointments
me.
until 6 at Serenity Lane or something like that, there's nobody for them to call if they don't have the number of the driver.
So, yes, it was my understanding that that was being communicated to everyone that called in, that there was coverage between 8 and 4.
no. Is it possible when something big like that happens on the dial-a-ride side that we can just, all the providers just shot an email like, hey, you know, dispatch hours changed. It was 10 to 2, now it's 8 to 4 with a second person on. And also, we need to talk about Dennis, his contract, because is it up June 30th?
Then he's leaving and,
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, and just like, so funding issues with no communication, I was able to get through and had a good conversation with Cheryl, with our quarterly report. But because I think maybe she reached out, or there was a question in my report. Anyway, but if I hadn't had that, if that issue hadn't come up, I would have never have known why we weren't getting our funding again. I didn't know that anything had been pushed back. It's been over a month, with not, just basically radio silence.
I'm sorry, I don't exactly understand what you just,
With the funding.
That there was a
The quarterly
problem with the
reimbursement?
CARES Act and the,
No, not
Any
that, just that
change?
we just don't have communication, that our, we all turned in our quarterly reports on time. Well, I did, turned in my quarterly report on time. And it's now, we usually would already been reimbursed by now.
so it's been 2 weeks since I got all of that, all of the providers in. And so this is the first week of the month that we've got the check requests turned in and the providers are being paid. It's not out of line for the timeline.
Okay, it's just, I guess maybe just not what we're used to then.
True, okay.
That's what I mean. Just like an email, like, hey, we're a month out. Or whatever it is.
So you're saying like maybe when all of the quarterly reports are in, saying, hey, they're in, and we expect to have reimbursement sent out in the next 2 or 3 weeks or something.
Yeah,
or
any kind of
time period.
communication.
Just so that they know that, hey, all the reports are now in, so.
Yeah.
Maybe just kind of a quarterly email when you got them, okay. Thank you for all submitting reports, they've all been submitted, and
Right.
expect to see your reimbursement in a couple weeks or whatever.
They were all shut down. You know, nobody was providing.
So I'm just saying, I
service.
think that's,
Well, that's not
So-
accurate, but.
there's a couple that were up,
True.
but it's, but probably a good practice just to say, hey, thank you, you know, once all the reports are in, just send an email thanking them for getting the reports in on time and expect to see reimbursement by
2 weeks.
whatever that time frame is.
I'm just surprised because I've had an ongoing conversation with you, providing information to you so that you can better utilize the funding that's available to you.
That has no regard on this. And I already said it at the very beginning, that, yeah, I was in contact with you about that. I was already expecting that the reimbursement would be on its way when you contacted me.
because you're used to 4 weeks earlier? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, usually, yeah, that's how we've done it in the past, which if it changes, that's fine. All I'm asking for is just communication, just so that everyone knows, yes, people are shut down, but all providers are still working. I mean, we all run nonprofits for the most part, or work in like a city position, so we're still at work. The services, yes, may not be running, we're running. I know other services are running. So I'm just asking for communication. And I get that it's not the best of circumstance for anyone, because this really should be Dennis doing this. But I don't know where Dennis is at.
Does anybody know where Dennis is at?
We've asked him to come to meetings. I mean, I don't know what else to do.
Mike, do you know where Dennis is
I
at?
don't know where it's at. Oh my gosh.
And he doesn't call you either?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Well, the contract will end on the 30th.
Is he submitting invoices?
Yes.
Of course, that's how I get
Of
paid.
course it is.
I do know he contracted with the tribe and they're paying him as well right now.
I think I saw that somewhere.
Panero, he used to run the Douglas County transportation, the transit for the.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it is a non-issue in 20-something years.
Okay. Is there any other NOAs? Okay, public comment. Hearing none?
Christine, do we have anybody on for public comment?
Christine?
They're unmuted.
She's unmuting.
They just about any of it.
Any public comment? Okay, doesn't sound like there is any. So, oh, okay.
I think it's important we give enough time for people to comment, public comment.
So it sounds like it's a provider saying they'd like an email, even if when quarterly reimbursements will happen, even if another provider didn't turn them in. So instead of just waiting until they're all there. Any other comments? Okay, so we'll work on that. Agenda build. So the June 22nd meeting, primary thing is going to be our budget.
Next time will be budget committee and then June 22nd.
I've got the board meeting, yeah.
Yes.
So the June 22nd, we'll have a budget hearing. We'll also have the U-Trans transfer agreement for approval.
Hopefully with our
20-6.
Resolution number 20.6. And we'll also have an executive session to talk about the adjacent property. And then I did have one NOA. Just wrote it
Is it
underneath
the
my
CARES
head.
Act?
No, so the CARES Act is there, so I'd like to get some information to the board in terms of what Matt was talking about and just what opportunities are there for partnering and all of that with that. And if we have time on the 22nd, that may be a pretty big agenda. So maybe we just shoot that to our July meeting.
So basically, what happened in a nutshell is ODOT put a notice out that stated that Dial Red providers receiving 5310 funding that were doing meal deliveries, that those meal deliveries qualified and they could invoice those expenses.
And it sounds like they've received some funding and.
They received some additional
Yeah.
funding, which would be their match for their 5310 to do those services. So it's really
Christine is not doing a good
really
job.
specific to UVDM. They received the funding and
But it sounds like they've received some funding, but they're looking for opportunities
share it
to
with
partner
the other
with
providers.
other providers, with whatever, and so just.
But it's not just food, right? It's other
Medication.
services too.
Yeah.
So let's
Which
just,
that's what we've been
maybe we
doing.
just have a quick agenda item on that at our July meeting. On that, so let's make it on July on that one. And then my NOA was on the, kind of goes back to this transfer agreement. And it was transferring the name of Umpqua Transit, the alias of Umpqua Transit to the district. And I believe when you operate under an alias, there's some requirements for some legal advertising for so many days in a row or something like that. So that's probably something that we need to look at and well, I think you have to register it with the Secretary of State, but I think there's some legal notices that you have to advertise for 2 or 3 days in a row or something like that. So anyway, you might want to look at just what that is to take that.
absolutely.
I don't know if it's called an alias or a
DBA.
DBA. Yeah.
EBA is the term used here.
So to see what those are so that we can have that by July 1st. That was all I had. Anybody else have anything for the agenda? June 22nd. Okay, so next meeting, budget committee meeting, next Monday, 5:30.
I'm out.
Board meeting,
I'm
June
out.
22nd, 5:30. And then on to July.
Perfect.
All right, and it is now 7:19 and we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.